this is the way I'm going to do code of conduct. Everybody, as adults, so we just treat each other as we would want to be treated and talk to each other the same. And when one person is speaking, just let them speak until maybe you're called on. We have another thing going tonight, which is that we're going to be requesting people to step forward and nominate themselves or be nominated to serve on the board. If you feel you have either that interest or that qualification. And with that, I'll just start going around with the board. And if you can introduce yourself and what part of the city you live in.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
What's that?
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, I'm Brad. I live in 87th and Pine with Ruth.
And I'm Pat. I live at 80th and Gleason.
I'm John. I live on 81st and Oregon.
Hey, I'm Dylan. I live on 83rd and Burnside.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mose. I don't live in Montevilla. I live in the Buckland neighborhood, but I am the Southeast Uplift liaison for the Montevilla neighborhood.
Jane.
I'm Jane, and I live on 92nd and Salmon.
I'm Chris Wollinger. I live at 78th and Stark.
Ron Thrasher, 93rd and Hawthorne.
Matthew Baird, I live on 76 and Pacific. Michael Sunlander, Southeast 80th, Allen Street here, and Potato Street.
Evelyn, 92nd and Gleason. Rebecca Wade, 93rd Burnside.
Benjamin Francis, 78th and Gleason.
Patrick Kane, way out north.
Andrew Wilkins, 80th in Oregon, you could say.
And you're going to be filming us tonight.
Yes.
Hi out there. I've always wanted my 15 minutes of fame.
Ready for your close-up?
Why else would I have gone into this? Yeah. Okay, how are you guys doing? Good. Okay, so ODOT, Oregon Department of Transportation, requests you come and present something exciting they got going. And we have Joshua Brooking and Ben Cheney. And we're scheduling question time about 7.
Okay, all right. So thanks for having us here. Just going to start off with introductions. Ben, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Hey, my name's Ben Cheney. I'm the transportation analyst on this project. So I've done the sort of modeling and the safety analysis and that kind of stuff. And then I'm also the liaison between the technical folks and the project management folks.
Yeah. So my name's Josh Brooking, and I'm the project leader or the project manager that's overseeing delivery of this project. So we just wanted to come, we're very, very early in the process of developing a plan for some improvements at I-205 exit ramps at Southeast Division. It's already programmed, and it's a $3.7 million project to do some safety enhancements at the along Division and each of the on-ramps and off-ramps right here at Division. So the money comes from our statewide transportation improvement, which is essentially ODOT's capital improvement program, but specifically it's coming out of some safety funds. So this kind of shows our safety priority index system, which kind of guides our decision making when we decide to do safety projects. Essentially, those larger blue dots are kind of our worst case situations in terms of frequency of crash. Is that a baseline correct way to assess? And along Division, between 2012 and 2016, at this location, there was 241 crashes, none of which were fatal, but there were 5 Class A injuries, which are, below fatal. There's Class A, Class B, Class C, and then property damage. In addition to that, there was also 5 vehicle pedestrian conflicts as well, where pedestrians were struck. And all of those pedestrian incidents occurred on Division. So. So I do have this diagram. I don't expect you to try to read all of this. I got some closer ups as well, but I did provide it for everybody if you want to pass it around. And this shows our overall impact area for the project and where we're going to be making improvements. So the first location that I kind of broke out, so this is the from 205, the northbound off-ramp onto Division. We are proposing to change from the shared left through and dual right turn lanes that are on that off-ramp to give each of the movements their own lane. So there will be a separate left turn lane, a through lane, and then a right lane here. That'll include a new signal that we'll be installing, as well as ADA improvements in the entire intersection. We'll also be tightening that radius that's there, which kind of helps with the distance of the crossing as well for pedestrians. So along Division, there's also going to be some changes. So currently, as you're traveling westbound, there's a dedicated left turn and then a shared left turn through lane, and traffic kind of backs up because you get confusing signals and people waiting to turn or go straight rather. So we're actually proposing to change that to left turn. So we'll be removing that through lane, and there will just be one single through lane. So again, we'll be replacing the signal at the northbound off-ramp and ADA improvements, and then kind of that entire section will actually be repaving. So we're going to grind out the existing pavement and then put it back, and installing a painted median island as well. This one's going to be a little harder to see because it's a longer segment, but the from Division southbound on 205. So there's a connection from Division down to Powell at that intersection where you can go. Currently it's 2 lanes that go all the way to Powell. We'll be narrowing it just to 1 lane, and then the connection from Division to 205, we're going to convert from 1 lane to 2 lanes and installing a ramp meter. After the ramp meter, that dual lane will then drop to a single lane as you get onto I-205. So again, we are very early in the process, but we're going out to all the neighborhood associations that are in the area, just getting feedback. If you have questions, we want to hear them. We also want to hear your input as well. So we're just now beginning our project development, and we'll be carrying that all the way through the end of next year as we hit all of our milestones. And then we're targeting construction for the summer of 2020. So again, we're still a ways out, but we'll be continuously outreaching, as well as coordinating with the City of Portland and TriMet, just because there's the Division BRT project that's in the works, and then a city project as well. I'm forgetting what their acronym is. So we're working hand in hand with them to kind of analyze, all of our collective impacts and how that's going to affect everybody in terms of construction. So other than that, that's the project for right now. So we're happy to take any questions, or if you have any comments. Yeah.
Just real quick, I was going back a couple slides to the one that's for the signal.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious. I really hate how it is right now, although it got changed to that at some point. So I'm wondering, is there a reason why, maybe you're not remembering your section perfectly, why it can't be 2 through lanes and 1 turn lane?
2 through lanes and 1.
So you mean like a shared left through, a through
no,
only,
shared.
right?
A designated left and 2 through lanes that are straight on.
That are straight.
As opposed to having a right turn only.
Yeah.
as opposed to a right turn only.
Right, okay. Yeah, so at this location, the heavy movement is that right turn movement, which is why, you know, it was originally designed, or most recently designed with that dual right. So it's roughly about in the PM sort of rush hour.
Is this the one as you're coming off the exit?
Yeah, this is the one as you're coming off the exit from northbound 205. So
Okay,
you
so what about
pass
the one
through
that's
Powell.
right before, that's going westbound where you turn to go southbound onto the freeway, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so that's
Is
the one
that-
on the left, yeah.
Yeah, so with that one, is there not enough space to have one
I see.
predominantly left and two through going west?
I see what you're saying, yeah. So this, like, again, in this particular one, the volumes are more heavy on the left turn. And so to make the operations kind of work the best that they can is to have those two left turn lanes.
So two
And just the one through.
designated left and one through?
Mhm. Yeah. That's pretty much as much as I can say about that. Yeah.
And there's also the constraint with, the cursor comes up. Well, there's the structure there, just on the other side of the interchange that the max goes under.
Right, the new
So-
platform there, yeah.
Right, so right now there's no plans to widen that.
Okay.
So that's another constraint that.
Is there concern about the funneling of everything into one lane so immediately from behind that?
There's a couple things, and I also should have mentioned that the other concern there is it's pretty limited in terms of where people can be waiting for that left turn, and so we know that if it were to go down to just one left turn lane, people would be backing up for that turn lane quite a bit, and so you kind of would still have that potential conflict where, you know, people have to get over into the other lane. As part of this project, there will be, you know, sign information early on. I think it goes, you know, solid half mile or so. And sort of as you're approaching. So there will be information to let people know to get over to the right if they're going through.
Yeah, because my experience is it's very difficult to get to the far right, and so that middle lane, I almost always use it to go straight, and it's actually what I find holds up the traffic is that people wanting to turn left from that lane.
Right.
So
Or-
that's
correct.
my experience, and if they were all in the left, a good portion of people definitely turn left in there, but it's the ones trying to turn left from that middle lane that holds up anybody wanting to go straight.
Exactly, yeah. So that conflict is the
Yeah.
part that we want to remove, that sort of ambiguity of, you know, I'm expecting to go through on this lane, but someone else is waiting to make that left. And just the way that sort of where people will have to be waiting and the volumes and the traffic timing and kind of the entrance onto the freeway, it works out so the best operation is just to have that one through lane and the two left turn lanes.
And we will, as Ben mentioned, it's not included on these kind of closer maps, but the one that I just passed out, it does include a new cantilever sign. You can see it up in the upper right of that diagram, and then I believe some, is that the only sign, advanced sign?
Yeah, and then there'll be refreshing of the signs that are in this area.
Right,
but
so that'll
that's the early sign.
Yeah, so that'll be changing everybody's expectations. You know, it will be a change to how it operates now, so.
I'm wondering,
Sorry,
I'm
does that
wondering if
answer
that
everything?
exit, northbound exit, is where you couldn't turn left before? Or am I thinking of something else?
You could turn
No,
left, but it was
at
a
one point there was a no left turn sign on that far left lane.
Yeah, there used to be.
There used
Yeah,
to be,
before
and
the
it
first
went away
one.
because nobody can read the signs, and your signs telling them it's gonna be one right-hand lane don't do any good, because nobody can read anyway.
Yeah, it's true. We were going so fast through there that you're not really like, you know,
Yeah, so I believe that sign's been removed.
Okay.
Because it's definitely marked
Yeah.
for a left turn now.
Have you guys done any outreach to the Asian Pacific American Network in Oregon? This area of the Montevilla neighborhood along Division is predominantly populated by Asian American and Pacific Islanders, and I don't see them represented at this meeting. I know that in 2016 and 2017, the Neighborhood Association was working very closely with Apano and the Southern parts of our neighborhood to address public safety issues and transportation issues. I know Division Street is really something that is important to them.
Sure.
And also for neighborhood association boards, it's a requirement when land use issues are discussed for them to do outreach to interested parties, which upon has already declared to the neighborhood association that they're interested in these public safety issues. I just don't see them represented here.
Yeah, I will take that note and get with my community outreach person.
Yeah.
and
I'd
set
appreciate
something
if you talk to Duncan Long or someone.
Okay.
As a bottom.
Okay, awesome, yeah, thanks for that.
It's a very good idea, and yeah, in years past, we weren't particularly successful in getting regular attendance, except perhaps for Mr. Wong.
Yeah.
My question is, have you been in communication with those who have been struggling with the Division Rapid Transit project? In other words, how does this plan of yours mesh with their plan as it's evolving? Because I suspect it might be less rapid, especially going to west.
Yes, so we
If
just,
there's only one lane, and that's the whole idea, is to have a really strong flow, east-west on Division.
yeah, so they've been aware of this project
Mhm.
as part of the BRT, and as the project manager, I've had one meeting and we are starting our hand-in-hand coordination to address any questions or issues like that. So far, baseline, nothing's been identified, but we are both working together, you know, in terms of making sure that our projects mesh well.
Well, I'm kind of identifying it because
Sure.
it just seems to be common sense. That's going to be a bottleneck.
In terms of the westbound, the single westbound lane,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, so I can answer a little more about that. We have been in coordination with TriMet for the duration of this project. We kind of, mostly because, you know, we've sort of carved out this portion as will be addressed by this project, and they're sort of taking the other ends of it. And so, you know, we've had coordination to make sure that everything kind of matches up and is in the same spirit. There is a downstream bottleneck, more sort of further west of here. It does drop down to one lane as well, and so the impact is a little bit limited in that regards in terms of the throughput. The other thing is that this will upgrade all of the signals to the sort of most current software and hardware in a way that they're able to coordinate with the buses in a more effective manner. So this project will enable the bus rapid transit to do the transit priority through this location. And so we do believe that that will support the bus rapid transit project as well. Yeah, I think that's really as much as I can say now in terms of what we've discussed with TriMet and what we've been hearing from them. But they are at the table, and they have been sort of, from the beginning of this project, aware that we're kind of coordinating with them to make sure that it works through.
Yeah, I have a question about that, from the northbound side on 96. Before I do that though, back several years ago, we were supposed to get an east-west freeway, and our illustrious governor and mayor at the time decided, oh, we don't need that. Powell will be your major road to I-205, and magically all the traffic somehow eastbound is going to get over to Division, or if you're westbound, magically you're going to get over to Powell to continue on. But my question is, and you've raised a whole bunch of questions in my mind, but regarding this particular intersection, since we're talking about it,
Sure.
the folks coming south on 96, they get a right turn line, a light. It's confusing to them though when they're sitting there at a red light and the people are coming the other way. The people coming off from the freeway northbound are confused as to whether they can go, you know, what the people southbound on 96 are going to do. And I've seen several close accidents happen because the folks from 92nd, because of the confusion of, you know,
Right.
who's supposed to be going how and when. And
Yeah, and I mean that's certainly exacerbated by the fact that it's a one-way and a two-way kind of meeting, and so it gets these weird,
Exactly.
sort of visual signals to folks. This will rebuild that signal entirely, and because we're adjusting the lane usages as we are, we can have it be a sort of a more normal signal where there's going to be a left turn arrow for the northbound and the southbound folks doing the left. So in terms of, you know, clarity of intent from the signal, it should be improved, because the folks going south will have, you know, a red turn, an arrow giving them the sort of left turn red or green.
Yeah, or perhaps a no turn on red, like are on a number of other intersections around, where you're not supposed to do anything other than stop if the light's red.
Right, so this project as currently going forward does not include any no right turn on red prohibitions, but I'm certainly interested in hearing that feedback. We generally don't do that unless we see a, you know, compelling reason to do that, to sign it that way, since the default legal option is that you can't turn right on red.
The other issue is people going east on Division, they want to go on the freeway, and so they make an illegal U-turn there. Not even going up to the signal light, and I see it time and time again. Once in a while you'll see an officer have somebody stop there, and you suspect that that's probably why they...
Yeah, so that's something that we've heard a number of folks mention. And again, as currently designed, there's nothing about that except sort of improving the signing, because there's no signs about no left turn there. That being said, I would sort of be interested in like just a kind of straw poll. If the question was, you know, do we just leave the signs as they are and kind of maybe encourage the police to enforce it a little more on the one hand, or build up that median so that there's a curb in the middle.
Perhaps a curb down the center there, so that they can't be making the left turn, illegal left turn onto the freeway ramp there, and then perhaps a no U-turn sign at the signals. That's not going to alleviate the people that ignore signs anyway. But,
right.
Yeah.
And again, that's a situation where, because no U-turn is the legal default, we generally don't sign it. But if there has been, you know, crashes or just observations and requests for it, then we will sign that. That, you know, that would be no problem. So if I could just like have like a vote by hands, who would want to see a median, like a physical median put in, and who would? And who would like really not want to see that?
I'd like to see it on there.
I need studies.
Unfortunately, that is outside the scope of the project.
Yeah, that's outside the scope of the project.
Yeah, you may have heard that.
I would like to see some of those, you know how like crosswalks have those yellow strobe lights?
Yeah, the rapid flash beacons.
Yes, I would like to see those at all all points on that intersection, because as you said, it was 200 and how many accidents?
241, I think.
Yeah, I think it warrants those.
Over what, a 5-year?
Yeah, that's over a 5-year period.
And again, there was 5 pedestrian collisions.
Yeah, and how many near misses?
So the one thing with
I wish we
this,
knew near misses.
right? The one thing with the signal is pedestrians will have their own.
Yeah, so this will change the signal so that pedestrians, you know, when the pedestrian light is green, as it were, or was walk, nobody is turning over you. Which is a change from how it operates currently. So we do expect this to reduce the pedestrian conflict, and that's kind of the focus of the project based on those pedestrian collisions. Specifically to the RFBs, we can't do that at these locations because they are only for use at uncontrolled locations, so we can't by law mix the flashing yellow with a traffic signal. So, you know, in this particular area, there's a rapid flash beacon just to the west where the TriMet crossing is. But because both of these crossings are controlled by traffic signals, we can't put them here.
Those five pedestrian hits in the grand scheme of volume is actually not very high. I mean, if the city was looking at putting, you know, at an uncontrolled crossing, putting in RFPs, 5 wouldn't generally. I mean, 5 is really low volume. Like Gleason has a lot more than that, as an example.
So it's a low absolute number.
There's another area on the deal that I'd like some information on. The southbound ramp off from 205 and 84, where they come together, and they go through to Stark and then back onto the freeway or Division. Used to be, now it's very difficult to get into the lane if you want to go straight through to Stark. It's extremely difficult. You've got to get in that lane. Some engineer in his infinite wisdom a few years ago decided that both of those lanes going through across Gleason should become, the left one should be to the freeway only, and the right one to Stark and Washington only. And I've seen so many close accidents with people either not realizing or not wanting to wait in that long line, or coming off from 205 and not being able to get over two lanes to get in that proper lane to get through to Stark and Division. Why can't that be opened up back again so that both of those lanes go through, so they have a choice when they get down there? They can either go on the freeway or go straight through to Stark and Washington. You know, that seemed to me, when they did that, that seemed to me so stupid, because they just created a hazard by doing that. And it's hard enough to get where you got two freeways, off-ramps onto two freeways coming into 3 lanes, and people wanting to turn left onto Gleason coming off from 84, and they've got to get over 3 lanes in about less than a quarter of a mile.
Yeah.
You know, I think, what, maybe an eighth of a mile or something from where those two merge together to Gleason. And so that's an extremely short distance, and you get certain times a day, it's very dangerous. That quarter mile or eighth mile, whatever, is extremely dangerous. I've not seen accidents, but I've seen so many just, oh man, I thought he was going to hit him. Almost like the guy that the light was red on Stark the other day, and it had been red. Yeah. It had been red for about 10 seconds. The guy come through there at 35 miles an hour against the green light. I was glad the guy on my left side was a little slow on the throttle. But that really is a congestion point.
Yeah, so I mean, my quick answer would be, unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that particular, geometry there, so I can't really speak to it. I would say that ODOT has a sort of hotline type thing called Ask ODOT, and you can call or email them and sort of describe the location that you're interested in. And what will happen is, for a sort of safety concern of that type, that will be forwarded to either my team or the sort of safety investigations team that does things that are not related to a specific project but are kind of safety concerns that people give us. And they can tell you, they can follow up with you. And it could be an operations thing, it could be there was some design constraints, it could be that there was some other safety problem that we saw, and this is a reaction to that. I really can't say, but if you contact the Ask ODOT line, they will route it to the right people, they will do the research, and then they will get back to you. And we have time responsiveness quotas on that, so you can be pretty confident that it will
Is there
actually
a
come
phone
back.
number for that?
I do have it, and I can get it to you.
Okay,
It's-
later.
Sure, and it's helpful too because it actually documents as well. It's a documentation measure for us, so we can go back and look at that as well. So.
All right. Is there a way we can get this slideshow to run the line?
Yep, I can send it this evening to everybody to have.
So what I would recommend is drive east on 84, get off the 205 exit and try to get over and turn right on Gleason. You'll see exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, it's a life or death situation.
So I'll send this out, and my contact information's here, as well as Ellen Sweeney, and she's our public outreach person as well, so she can also guide some of those other questions and get you in touch with the right people as well. I do have a few business cards moving around, so.
Well, okay, great. I'll put them, should I just put them out here for people after the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, so, you're welcome to hang about for the rest of the meeting?
Yeah, do you mind if I just recap? I want to
sure.
make sure I capture everybody's comments, and we're going to reach out to Apano. I think that's a really great idea, just to make sure they're represented, and then there will be a little discussion about the potential U-turn prohibition going eastbound, preventing people from doing that, right? And then the right turn on southbound 96th as well, and kind of looking at that design a little bit more. And then, of course, our standing comment that we're coordinating with TriNet related to the BRT.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
If I missed anything, now's
Yeah, last chance.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you,
Well, we
Josh.
appreciate the
Okay.
opportunity.
So, if you need to go, just, pull from the door, you can
Yeah, I
stay.
think we'll probably head out and save
Yeah.
the taxpayers a couple cents.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how this dovetails, but tonight we have Michael Sonweiner that talked about the 82nd project.
Well, there is a dovetail, because 82nd Avenue, as many of you know, is a state highway. It has been almost forever. And a simple, for some of you, history lesson might help you understand the severe challenges we have now that are not simply a matter of maintenance, of neglect for 30 years. Forgive me, I'm not trying to be personal with either of you. 82nd Avenue, in terms of the scheme of things for ODOT, the Oregon Department of Transportation, is low priority. Generally speaking, when there's a ODOT prioritization system, their primary focus is on interstate, then statewide regional, and then what might be described as district. And for the most part, you've seen how $3.7 million can be fairly well slated for improving an interstate on and off ramp. It's pulling teeth to get that kind of attention for 82nd Avenue. And there are a lot more accidents on 82nd Avenue. In terms of the orphan highways that exist, I'll just pass this one around, look at the fine print, of course. There are, similar to 82nd Avenue, highways throughout Oregon. Very few of them go right through neighborhoods. And this one was never intended to. A very simple sort of history lesson is go back to 1930. 1930, 82nd Avenue was as far east as the city of Portland went. 82nd Avenue was a state highway, literally a state highway, going through mostly rural areas. And it was building up for about 30 years, and even by 1930, it was primarily a state highway, an arterial for the state. Now 82nd Avenue is the heart of Portland. 82nd Avenue is almost the midway between east and west in terms of the city's boundaries. And so times change, but jurisdiction has not. And neglect has definitely become pronounced. The laying of the highway, down, grinding it up and putting down a good new foundation is now about 30 years old. With a lifespan of 20 to 25, heavy volume. Anyone want to guess what the cost of tearing up, as ideally would be needed, the 82nd Avenue, 7.3 miles? Yes?
Over $1 billion.
Yes, good guess. About $1.4 billion to do it right. Just the highway, not the sidewalks, not improving the signaling and the safety features, just the blasted highway. Benjamin got it right. Well, that's just not there. It's not on the priority of ODOT to do that. They have a tremendous amount of other projects throughout the state, including, obviously, the bottleneck on the freeways themselves. I'm not giving excuses, just realities. Yes?
And I'd add that the conditions of 82nd Avenue, although I don't think this is intentional, tend to be at their worst in areas that are populated by minorities and people at the lowest income levels. If you look to the south of Powell Boulevard towards many of the Asian businesses, there's significantly larger potholes. But if you get to the northern part of our neighborhood, where you start to have the more affluent pockets, kind of closer to Stark and Washington, the road conditions are better.
And of course, it gets worse the further south you go.
Right.
And that's not necessarily the Asian population, but it's a poor population down by Lance.
and out that way, there are sometimes not even sidewalks, literally no sidewalks. Right?
Go north, and there's potholes north of Burnside there that'll swell up one of these little stupid, they call them smart cars, I call them stupid cars. But these little mini cars about the size of what I used to build as go-karts when I was a kid.
Mercedes SUVs now.
Well, I won't take
Yeah,
a personal
yeah.
issue with you driving a Geo Metro convertible, which is about as small as a smart car. If you call me Don, that's okay. I'm gonna let that.
No, I had a Geo Metro.
For 5 years, there's been an 82nd Avenue Improvement Coalition. Actually founded and driven largely by Brian Wong, who's a former chair of the Montevilla Neighborhood Association. I hooked up with Brian because I live just off 82nd, as most of you do. And about 4 years ago, before I became involved really with the Neighborhood Association, I was with the 82nd Avenue Improvement Coalition. A big concern of mine, of course, is Division and 82nd, where the PCC campus now is. Before it was the center. And most of you know that I'm associated with Portland Community College as my first priority. But I've ridden bicycles down the sidewalks. 82nd is not safe anywhere on the highway, I can say from experience, for a bicycle. Period. Not going to happen. But you go on the sidewalks, that's also really, really sketchy where the sidewalks don't exist. And there has been this sort of persistent sort of neglect, understandable, based upon ODOT priorities. PBOT is responsible for things like sidewalks, but there are different design standards for the ODOT highway and the PBOT sidewalks. They don't mesh. A lot of businesses along 82nd Avenue, not just nearby, relatively affluent here, but the further south you go, don't have proper driveways going onto the highway and off again for their businesses. And they complain to the city, well, please, help us fix the sidewalks and the driveways. And the city says, well, we can't really because the street itself may be getting repaired, and it's kind of silly for us to fix sidewalks to standards that ODOT will be having for the highway. And so the city points at ODOT saying, no, we can't really fix that problem. Sorry for you, Mr. Business. I saw this firsthand happen to Cartlandia down south on 82nd. They had a horrific transition between 82nd and into their business area, which was highly trafficked. But they simply could not get that fixed. 5 minutes. So what happens is ODOT points and says, no, city problem. City points and says, no, ODOT needs to act. They're not working together. So about a year ago, in earnest, the 82nd Avenue Improvement Coalition concluded. And this is after 3 and 4 years worth of public hearings and working with Senator Michael Dembrow and my representative Alyssa Kinney-Geyer, who are leaders of this, need to have jurisdictional transfer. Let's transfer from ODOT to PBOT, jurisdiction for the state highway. It's an orphan highway. It's largely been neglected. Everyone recognizes that. And the city says, well, that's great, except 30 years of deferred maintenance, $1 billion or more. We can't afford that. We can't hardly take care of our own other streets. So we're wanting you to sweeten the pie. Help engage in some projects that will help fix, not all, but a good portion of the immediate, at least safety problems for 82nd Avenue. And ODOT is really quite happy to give it to the city, but the city doesn't want it without some improvements or a promise of additional cash and support. So this comes down to PBOT about 2 months ago saying, we need about $300 million. Not 1.3 billion, just 300 mil. And ODOT says, well, we might be able to agree to 150 million. So they're way apart. So pressure has been brought by this coalition onto both sides to come up with a memorandum of understanding. And today, just today, I was spending time with Chloe Udelay's office. She's now the Commissioner of Transportation, trying to put pressure, I'll encourage her to put pressure with us on ODOT, but also PBOT, to come to an agreement, for God's sake. You know, people are dying here. Deaths, not 5 major injuries, lots of deaths. One of the worst crash corridors in the state. One of the top 5 most dangerous streets in the state. And so that is in the works, and we are cautiously hopeful, with the support of all the state senators, all the state representatives that have their districts lining up on 82nd during the 7.3 mile stretch. We have them all online, all signed up to pressure ODOT and PBOT to come to an agreement, come up with a work plan with clear deadlines, and hopefully a transfer of jurisdiction no later than sometime in 2022. Oh my God! Another 4 or 5 years of death? The Avenue of Roses is the Avenue of Death. I'm not joking.
It's not good.
Okay, so we need to bring pressure, and we are seeing movement, but the 300 and the 150 million, they have to kiss. And they have to agree on projects that can be undertaken by ODOT in the meantime, before the jurisdictional transfer, primarily of a safety nature. So many crossings are simply unsafe. The lights are so fast timed. I had difficulty crossing in time. You probably had the same experiences in a trafficked area. And so I'm optimistic that pressure is being brought. I'm not optimistic that a whole lot of money is going to be available before the Metro November 1st, thank you, bond measure, which we are also working up to, trying to get ODOT and PBOT to clarify with Metro projects that could be put on that bond measure, because ODOT doesn't have a money tree. And the legislature has been underfunding them. So they're not the bad guys, they're just doing the best they can with little resources. So we're hoping to get a togetherness with a memorandum, a good at least $100 million out of the bond measure November 2020 for designated improvements that will sweeten the pot, along with the state legislature, we hope, in 2021, to allow PBOT to say, okay, we can accept jurisdiction now, it's not simply a burden. You've given us $150, maybe $200 million to play with. We still have a lot of work to do, but we can move forward. Without this kind of a plan and pressure, it could be another 20 years of the same old for 82nd Avenue. I don't think I'll live that long. I'll probably die on the highway. Thank you very much. Questions?
Oh, yeah. So, why wouldn't PBOT want to just take it over with the provision that ODOT transfer the funds?
They don't have the funds to transfer, really.
Well, the state legislature maybe could do something
They
like that.
could. They passed a huge transportation measure a year ago.
But that would mean that they could dovetail everything. You know, their standards here and their standards there.
Over $100 million is being spent to renovate Outer Powell. That was in the transportation package. 82nd Avenue was not part of the deal. It wasn't designated.
And Powell's ODOT too, isn't it?
Yes, but what I'm saying is that was part of the historic transportation package passed by the legislature. 82nd Avenue was not. So we're looking at least at the earliest 2021 for a substantial amount of money from the state legislature. In the meantime, ODOT has some discretionary money that they can use for safety purposes. We would like to see much more than the promised $30 million or so over the next 5 years. That sounds like a lot, but it's not for 7 miles of dangerous highway. We'd like to see that tripled in the 5 years with committed projects from existing money. And of course, we're not growing the money on a tree. So what we get on 82nd is going to have to be somewhere else that's not getting so much during that same time frame. It's life. But virtually no city in the state of Oregon has the same extremely dangerous highway at the heart of their city, creating this havoc for business as well as for pedestrians and others on an ongoing basis.
What's the name of the project you're in?
It's not a project, it's 82nd Avenue Improvement Coalition.
Okay.
And it's really seeking, I suppose the project is jurisdictional transfer. So that then we would have at least only the city of Portland to pressure for future improvements. And they would be responsible at the ballot box. Frankly, ODOT's not. No personal.
Sure, and I'm not familiar with the conversations that are going on, but it's definitely something I can relay back to the managers. That
Well, we held about 6 weeks ago a major 80-person attended at Southeast Campus with your regional director of ODOT present, as well as the acting director of PBOT present. And so the communication is happening, but the more people communicate saying this needs to be a priority, people in this area are incensed. It's a manifest danger. Nothing good can be said about this situation, really. It's just neglect, and neglect has to change. Thank you.
Well, I agree.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. I'll let you know when the meetings are for anyone who wants to come.
Yeah, would you have to leave information on the table?
Sure.
Just about that.
Sure. No, I can give you.
So this time is set aside for member comments or questions. And, I was anticipating some. Let me tell you a reflection I've had. And I had to learn this the hard way when I was at Standard Insurance almost 10 years ago. But I would get some idea that I thought somebody else better get that idea too, you know. And the best way to do that was to write a lengthy email, you know, very well punctuated, and you know, I was finally told that I should put in some paragraph breaks. But what I discovered was that I would say things more vehemently in an email than I would if I was just in person. And today, Michael and I were talking about how there's kind of two different worlds in personal communication. The face-to-face, like we're having, and then electronic. So that's my comment. Any other comments or questions?
I have a question for the board.
Okay.
Minutes haven't been published on the website for a significant amount of time. It's a way that neighbors learn about what this board does when they can't attend meetings, which most of this neighborhood can't, otherwise they'd be here. What is the board doing to rectify that issue? The second thing I have a question about is there's not been finance reports by this board or the previous board since almost 2016. There hasn't been finance reports which are supposed to be presented in paper form, not only to the board but accessible to the membership, so they have an idea of what's being spent and what revenue's coming in. And I know that it seems the practice of the previous board, as in the one that just expired, was to make purchases without voting on them and then not also reporting to the membership or to the board. Can you explain how you guys are going to improve oversight of the finances of this board and also be more transparent?
Okay, so I took over the treasurer role, but my access to the account was limited, but I was able to create reports which I made available to you. And we made a report at the end of the year on election night of our year-to-date financial activity, our our fiscal year financial activity. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
There have been some administrative issues, and I'm not going to make any more excuses about those. But right now, we're in a quandary where we need to get new check signers, and therefore new individuals with access to the bank account.
Yeah, so to put more plainly, so we're all volunteers and we have to go to the bank during a weekday, so.
I know, I served on the board for 5 years, and this is probably the first time this board, a neighborhood association in Montevilla has ever had a period of time where, I mean, the check signer that's currently the check signer has been off the board for over 7 months, and they weren't actually voted. Because our friend here, Andrew, films all these meetings, and I watch them because I can't always be here. And there was never even a vote to make her a check signer. And so you have a person that's never been voted to be a check signer that is in fact a check signer because maybe somebody said that it was approved, but it wasn't. And you have no finance reports and an entire year almost of expenditures where there was no vote on those things. I mean, it's recorded every meeting and they were never discussed in your board meetings. So I don't think the volunteer excuses, I mean, all nonprofit boards are volunteers, whether it's Mercy Corps or the MNA. The responsibility is still collectively and individually that the board have oversight of the finances and be transparent. It's not even a bylaws violation. It's like literally you guys are violating state law by not producing these documents and by not voting on expenses.
All right.
Let me answer part of that. And part of it is that we have limited time to address this issue right now.
Yes.
But we have been in communication, and you know that I have made it a goal to correct these administrative issues. And we're a new board, and I'm not going to make any more excuses for the old board or myself. So what we confronted, as far as the individual you were referring to, I went to the bank, I was ready to do a whole check signer thing, found out that there's another individual on the check signing card who hasn't been on the board for 6 months and stuff. So we have to go, we're all ready to go, and now we have to go back and, come up with a new set of directions on that. So I hear what you're saying, and we're going to correct it.
Okay.
And that's the best I can do right now.
Okay.
So,
Neighbor raised his hand. You had a question?
Go ahead.
No, I saw you put your hand up, but I don't think he noticed you.
Oh. I was on the Montevilla Soccer Club, which is non-existent anymore. I was treasurer on that board simply because, and the also the PTA at Dinsney. I got drafted. Some of the ladies I knew said, "Ron, here, come on, you can have any job you want." But I'm retired. Then I was working full-time, more than full-time sometimes, and I still managed to find out a way to get banking. We had required 2 signers on every check. It could not be signed by just one. I had to give a monthly report of the income and expenditures, where the money went, where it came from, and so on. I've been thinking about volunteering to be on the board. Not sure that I want to be treasurer, but I would be more than happy to help you with that. And if you want me on the board, I'll do my best to be part of it. I am retired, so I have a very heavy work schedule.
Oh, yeah.
I get up in the morning at 5 o'clock, damn it. 4 o'clock in the morning, yet for so many years I still can't sleep in. I'm still asleep at 6 o'clock.
As you get older, so you're just going to be back at 5.
Well, we're going to be taking that up in the board meeting, which is coming up shortly here.
But, yeah, I'll volunteer to help you out.
Okay.
I'll
Best
nominate
I
you.
can.
Okay, all right. Well, unless there's any other question or comment, the general meeting will be adjourned, and you're welcome to stay for the board meeting. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
All right.
If anybody skipped dinner, we have chips.
So we're gonna commence the board meeting.
You guys are welcome to listen in, but we're going to start it. Okay, let's go ahead.
7:46. Now, is it Evelyn?
So as an aside, Patricia and I went to Southeast Uplift training, and they indicated we don't need to be quite as formal.
So we could have any number of new business, you know,
We should
that isn't listed.
We should stick to the agenda, but when we post the agenda, we can consider the draft. That's what she told us, so I think we should still work down this.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna work down the list, but there's a couple things that have come up since as far as topics.
Sure.
Yeah, I can use it.
Okay. Can somebody move that we approve the meeting agenda?
Second.
So let's get the, who's it, what's it?
So we don't need all of that on the minutes. We don't need to
Well-
annotate who first and seconded.
She said.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's what I'd like to do anyway.
yeah, all right.
I come from a different kind of board, and so, you know, I mean, like, the proposition has to be word for word, okay? So what was that proposition? Read it back, you know.
Sure.
We've been a little bit more loosey-goosey here, as long as it is essentially what's being proposed. But that's another thing I'd like to see, is that propositions be word for word, you know, so they go in, and you can say, could you read back that proposition, so we know what it is. Anyway,
So that was simple, that was just approved, I'm moving the approved.
and John, second. Any
I
discussion?
started the agenda. And I
Yeah.
said
All those in
John-
favor?
John seconded.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Now, we have the minutes from 11:12. Take a second to go over them. The board minutes are on, I don't know that we need to approve the minutes from the general meeting. So that's why the board minutes are on the top. And there was a concern about who motioned and who seconded, and I filled that in. If anybody remembers it differently, then let us know. Would you like to approve the minutes?
Yeah, motion to approve
The minutes
the minutes.
from 11:12.
Yep.
And John seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Okay. Okay, passed. All right, thanks. And now we move on to nominations. So the request has gone out, and
Well, where's more for us?
Yeah, it's for us.
Yeah.
what's that?
So are there any nominations
This is not
for?
a general
Yeah,
discussion,
this is
right?
not a general.
Has anyone Has anyone been nominated or is it?
Well,
No.
That we need to consider?
in the past, we have opened it up. Okay, so individuals are here, they are free to nominate themselves or be nominated. So,
I'm not going to nominate myself, but I'd be willing to be drafted. I was, and I say that because I was, the PTA, I was drafted. The ladies come to me and said, Ron, you can be president, secretary, treasurer, whatever you want, but you're going to be on the board. And I've been with these folks on the soccer club, Montevilla Soccer Club. I was equipment manager, and I believe I was treasurer there as well. It's been too many years ago to remember. It's been some years ago. One of my jobs that I was school trained for when I was in the military was a personnel records specialist. So we dealt with privacy and all that stuff.
A quick question. I know, so you mentioned this last time, but you also mentioned that you might be moving.
It's not going to be it's not going to be in the extremely near future. I would love to, but because of taxes and politics and so on, but I'll probably die at the house I'm living in now. if you know, realistically. So hopefully that's a few years down the road. I'm 75 now, but hopefully, you know, my dad was 89 when he passed.
I'd like to nominate Ron. I think it's never been an issue for neighbors that want to serve to get on the board in the past, and Ron has stated that he has some experience on previous boards and knows the expectations of board members. I think it would be valuable to have somebody that has that kind of experience on the board.
I don't know if it needs a second, but I second it.
Ron, you're nominated.
I was afraid of that. I had to open my big mouth.
It's sort of what happened to me, so. Any project or aspect of the community that you're interested in?
I'll be a board member at large. I do not want to be I will not be a secretary.
Yeah. Neither will I. We're in the same club.
Don't want to be president. I will help. I don't want to be treasurer, but I would be willing to help you with that. So,
Well, you were here at 6:30, right?
Yeah.
Helped me set up, so.
Well, you were pretty well set up when I got here. We just kind of exchanged pleasantries.
Well, yeah, anyway, just anecdote.
I'll do the best I can, whatever needs to be done.
Excellent. I really appreciate that. So, is there?
I have been asked, actually by a couple of people, to allow myself to be nominated. I think I want to postpone that till January, partly because A, my wife has not given me a green light, and I don't need the stress of home.
Yeah.
I'm already away typically 4 evenings out of 7 in a week with my other volunteer activity. Mm-hmm. And that would be a stressor. But B, I might be open to it, as I had mentioned to you, simply because I like to be in touch with the neighborhood, and this is one way of doing it. On the other hand, I am running for re-election in May. A similar situation when I first came on the board. I'll be stressed for time if I have to campaign against anyone. I won't know that until February. I'm on other committees at PCC that I have more leadership role in. I do have institutional memory. I think there are other resources. I can still give institutional memory. I've told you I'm a phone call away anytime, literally.
Yeah.
But I'm not yet disposed to be on the board. I would be more disposed also if 3 or 4 other people reflecting different points of view from the Monteville Initiative and or other sectors were to join me as a package. I could sweeten the deal. If people really want me to be on the board, I would like to see some other people step up. And obviously that would have to be agreeable to the existing board, who I greatly appreciate your service. It needs to be respected.
And
So-
what I had said, when I was talking about that, in regard to that, was that, package is a nice idea, but each person would be considered on an individual basis.
Of course,
Yeah.
sure. I do
I
understand
guess that
that.
goes without saying.
At least from my perspective, that's a non sequitur. Can't imagine any other condition in which you would only come in as a group rather than just to volunteer your own time.
Well, I think that my perception is, big picture, that we have an extremely divided neighborhood that is very polarized. If we are to begin to bridge that and heal it, we need people from different segments of the neighborhood to step up. If I see that happening, I'm more likely to feel very comfortable in stepping up myself.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
When you talk about different points, different parts of the neighborhood, you specifically mentioned like Monteville Initiative
Sure.
as people that you want to bring with you in this package. But I don't hear you saying like other types of groups.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would love
so
to.
like, let's say
Mhm.
from, the Asian community.
Yes, yes.
Which I don't, is that who you say as well?
Yes.
In your package, or are you specifically speaking to people in the group of Monteville Initiative? Just to clarify.
The polarization that exists is not primarily with the Asian American community, though I certainly would like to see one or more representatives, not just a token representative, from Pano. I'd like to see someone from ERCO. Would like to see someone from a seriously evangelical Protestant denomination.
Okay, so
Would
you're
like to
also,
see a Roman Catholic. Would like to see
you're also
a
looking
variety
to
of
bring.
people.
I think we're just going to bring it
Yes.
back on point to the topic at hand. 'Cause
Sure.
We're
Yeah, in general,
getting off.
this is not an open discussion, but I really appreciate the questions. We can always open it up to questions. So, following up on what you said, I think we have to look at the fact that Mike has served our board for many years and is serving in the community. And his conditions are his conditions. And we all have choices, we can join the board, we can resign from the board. It's all volunteer. So I think what Michael is suggesting is something more in principle than in formal structure.
Right.
So,
But nonetheless, the bylaws would actually allow the board to do a slate vote, because you'd still analyze each individual, and if it's a package, you would just say, yes, we can do this because we've individually analyzed each person and vote. There's nothing in the bylaws that prohibit that.
But yeah, of course everybody would be. He's not actually saying he's gonna come in with a pack.
No,
He's just saying he
what
wants
I'm
to
really
see
saying
other
is,
people.
You his handlers, let him speak for himself.
I mean,
This is not an open discussion.
Okay.
If it is, then I've got a lot of things to say.
just to very briefly clarify for you also. No, I would be on my own merits, but I would like to see, not a package, that was a misuse of terms. I would like to see other people stepping up to be considered. And I would like you board members who would be making the decision on an individual basis to consider the widest range of backgrounds so as to help bridge the divides that clearly exist today.
Sure,
Leave that
if
one.
other
wanna
folks
say-
are interested, they should just tell us.
Yeah, they can
And then
email
we
us.
can go from there. We don't need to do as a gateway.
I mean, there was a person who was interested and isn't here today because he was told that he was uninvited. I mean, that's kind of the thing, is like, there's kind of nepotism occurring right now. Are you aware
well,
of that?
I think that's a misrepresentation. And since we're not on Facebook, I think we can actually say what the truth of it was. First off, in my discussions with Jeff, I never represented him that his avenue was through me.
Yeah.
I was reaching out,
Yeah.
because for one, I'm the old, well, no, Pat, but, I'm not employed. I have time to get this, association up and running. And so, but there's nothing to suggest that anybody cannot come in and nominate. So, I handled it very poorly, and I got some feedback for it. I called up Jeff and I said, this is just not going to work out. And
But that's not
but that's see,
democratic.
it's not even my place.
Right, it's not. That's nepotism right there.
Nepotism
No,
is the right word.
excuse me. I'm done. I'm done with calling names.
Like, you can't be insulting people like that. You need to stop.
Okay.
It's just a
I
telephone
think we
conversation.
should move on.
I think so too.
Okay, Dawn. I'm the chairman.
Sure. I'm
This-
going to
this-
motion that we move on to the next agenda item.
I got
What?
I motion that we
Yeah,
move
I
on to
know,
the
I
next
put-
agenda item.
Yeah, we should get back on topic here, because
Okay,
if
well-
you wanna wind it up, like, or finish up, you're saying, like, go ahead, but let's.
Yeah, okay, so add the question or the suggestion of minorities. That's another thing on my agenda that I would like to see, not because of the color of anybody's skin, but because of the communities that, and the cultures they represent. And I think that other cultures are unrepresented here, and especially the Asian community. So would anybody make a motion to, tell you what, I'll go ahead. I move that we bring Ron, is it Thrasher?
Fracture.
Onto the board as a board member at large.
Yeah, I'll second the nomination.
Okay, we've asked some questions.
I'll talk to Ron.
Any discussion?
I guess, so Ron, I have a question for you. Often at the meetings, you take a disproportionate amount of the time during the questions. Is that something that we could,
Yeah, we can calm that down.
yeah, that's really my biggest
There are
concern.
some issues that I feel very strongly about, and I'm more likely to voice those opinions, and I'm old and grumpy and set in my ways, and, my last name's Thrasher. And there may be a reason for that.
Yeah. And I recognize you have a lot of experience in the neighborhood.
But I've been around the block a few times, and been here and there and the other place, but yeah, when I get off on something, all you need to do is, hey, Ron,
Well, I was gonna ask you where that was going, and then you brought it around just without me having to ask. So, all those in favor? We're taking a vote. Aye.
I'm gonna abstain. I'm abstaining.
Okay, cool. So that means it passed unanimously.
Congratulations, Ron. You're
Yeah.
now a volunteer, board member at large.
You can.
Come on, take a seat. Now we have a kind of a, thank you, Michael. Next agenda, item, and we're ahead of schedule. Oh no, officer rules, okay. I guess we have this, you had taken the role of vice chair.
Yeah.
And I think in light of where you're going, I'd like to, switch that around a little.
Oh, yeah.
But I would, if you're comfortable doing what you're doing, then I'd like you to continue doing that role. The thought had come to mind, somebody coming on to take on the role of secretary. So are you good with treasurer in the long term?
Well, actually, I was going to ask Ron. So think you mentioned you were interested in treasurer and just doing board member at large.
Well, I said I would help.
Okay, help, fair enough.
He said, I would be one, I have several banks that I live close to. When I was at PTA, we dealt with the US Bank. I have no problem with at least, yeah.
Well, in fact, the role of treasurer in the segregation of duties aspect of things, we would have check signers, and then we'd have people handling money that goes into the bank, which doesn't happen very often, just on a few occasions. And then a treasurer is actually independent of any actual cash transactions. That's my understanding of treasurer. You do the books.
When I was on the PTA board, that was not the limitations. I did the whole 9 yards.
Right, and but when you have enough manpower, personal power, you have somebody who can be a check signer. Deposits are a little bit more simpler, but then you have a third person doing the books. And in my view, that would simply be, balancing, doing a bank reconciliation and making sure that, yeah. So let's just consider that, let's table that. Because we got to work this around back to check signers.
I guess, yeah, I can continue to treasurer and secretary for the foreseeable future. As a side note, I did submit the 501c3 amendment for positions. So updated the president to you. So I saw was the secretary. You're the registered agent for the organization.
Okay.
And then our address continues to be Southeast Uplift.
And that's with the state, right? Secretary is with the state?
Yeah.
Which dovetails exactly with the 990N, because, I'm the representative for that too. So, thank you. I was going to ask if you would consider being vice chair.
I don't know where we're going to.
What it is?
Oh, so before we go on, full disclosure to the members and everything that are here, I'm going to be resigning my position as vice chair and board member because I have to move out of the neighborhood. So just being forced out, it's one of those things I don't really have a choice. So just making everyone aware.
Sorry to hear that, John. Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was wondering why.
Yes, so I just want to give everybody, a heads up and make it clear.
Do you have a new place?
Yeah, but anyway, I got those. But yes, so everybody knows.
What it is that you be the vice chair if, let's say, I get a flu or I get run over by a banana truck, you get to take over.
You gotta watch out for those banana trucks on
Yeah.
Division.
Especially on 82nd Avenue.
82nd Division or 82nd Powell.
Anywhere on
82nd Star.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot of banana trucks.
Cash and carry is going to be there.
Yeah, with the bananas.
Lumber trucks.
Yeah, lumber trucks, yeah. Although hopefully they'll be going back and forth to 2 and 5. So I move, and I think this is pretty important in the whole process. I move that we adopt Pat Saunders. I nominate for the role of vice chairperson.
I second the nomination.
Any discussion? All in favor?
All of state.
Oh, you should do that. You're an
You can
important part of
continue to
this.
vote for this meeting.
Yeah, okay.
It's a nice thing.
So if you want to just make it very rote mechanical, moved so-and-so, second so-and-so, and so-and-so.
And then the vote.
Yeah, but
So that clarifies the rules. Here's what we've got. We have to remove the current signers, and what we didn't know is that Briar Rose Schreiber was still on the list. And so we have to vote to remove David Lynn, Briar Rose Schreiber, and Amanda Rose.
Okay, do we vote for them all together, or is it individual?
I was gonna kind of do it as a slate, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I move that we remove current signers from the check signing card, David Lynn, 2 N's, Breyer, Rose, Schreiber, Schreiber.
Do we need their names in minutes?
Yes, this is,
The bank will want this.
these guys, they are not gonna mess around.
Brad, just some institutional knowledge if you want it.
What?
You don't actually have to vote to remove the old people. You only need to approve new signers. In the past, that's how we've done it, and you don't need to put the other people's.
Well, that's not what I was told.
Okay. So I mean, that's how the board's done it for decades, so.
Well,
I mean, yeah, so if you want to add the extra stuff to the minutes, you can.
The time,
I'm sorry, but.
the
please,
times they
we're trying to
are
have a meeting
changing.
here.
Yeah, I think we do
Close.
need,
Sorry,
yeah,
thank you.
we're at a different level of legality here when we do this with the bank. So, Amanda Rhodes, RHOADS.
Okay, so
Did I make a motion?
you did, I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'm going to move that board members Brad Donahue, DONOHU, and Pat Saunders.
Full spell check.
And I always get spell check on my name.
Sanders.
Sanders. Is it S-A-N or S-A-U-N?
S-A-N.
Okay, Sanders. Be check signers.
Second.
You said it.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so you skipped a step, but
Yeah, discuss moving to a new bank.
right. But I actually had in the back of my mind, I was thinking I'd like to just put that off. Not knowing about John's situation, I was going to ask if Pat could be the signer. Anyway, we'll just get this whole thing over with, so that we can sign checks, we can check bank accounts and the whole thing. So
We can still have a quick conversation.
we can have a conversation about it. Yes, discuss. That's what it says. Yeah. What do you think?
The Mall 205 On Point is open on Saturdays.
That's true, yeah.
125 on point.
Yeah, it's still a community credit union. I don't know, it'd be a no-fee debit that we could open. That'd be easier for someone like me.
And they're pretty good.
I've been with them since they were Portland teachers and been very satisfied.
Is it okay that it's not in the neighborhood?
Well, they're
Yeah,
statewide.
there's no requirement.
Yeah.
Well, unless there's some institutional.
No, I don't think so. But our branch of Riverview is called the Montevilla branch, and you go to their website and they have a link to our webpage.
That's cool.
Isn't that special?
Yeah, it is nice.
Yeah, that's cool. And nothing against them, but, you know, like,
Yeah.
for business purposes.
Well, maybe they'll grow and need to open up on Saturdays, so.
Just
So,
throwing that out there.
Yeah, we have that out there, and if say, we get more people, so let's say we have 8 people on the board, and we want to move the signer responsibilities around, then we can talk about, take this up again.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be like a gift to the next board if we get it done before the
Oh,
end of the
isn't
year.
that,
To whomever-
Presents.
isn't it great to,
Whoever takes it over.
gifts, the old board leaving the new board.
Oh, I don't.
A gift.
Do we need to vote on changing banks, or is that just a logistical thing?
That's something you would have.
We don't have to do it now.
Yeah. So under the topic of new business, and now we are 5 minutes ahead, where it says invite smart, do you have there's an agenda.
Yeah, okay.
There you go. 8:20.
I lost my pen somewhere.
Yes, I might take it. That's yours, I think.
Oh, okay.
By the way, Ben, I do appreciate your input on that. Do appreciate you helping out. So, under Advice Smart, we now have the
Well, what this is.
possibility of having the historic survey training. And you're saying cut the introductions because it'll take the whole time, is that what?
No, it's not training, but it's introducing the project. And
Okay.
the project will be starting in February, so it would be good to get the word out to people in the neighborhood in case they want to volunteer to participate. And the trainings will be taking place in January.
Oh, okay. I guess I got the idea that it would be a training thing.
Well, it's not my understanding, I could be
Okay.
wrong. But I mean, there's going to be formal training.
Well, how long would it take for them to come in and introduce it?
I don't know.
Okay,
So
but
more-
you did say in your email that we could cut the introductions, like the 10-minute, you know. it
Well,
take-
or shorten them. He said we needed about an hour.
Yeah,
And then I'm thinking we'd have to cut into that. We'd have to shorten it.
Yeah, I think you'd want to shorten it to like 45 minutes maximum.
yeah.
We can tell them that that's what we're doing. But I thought we could move.
Does this come with like, you know, slides and, you know,
Because like,
how good is this person at representing this project, not just in, you know, just informational terms, but, you know, in kind of a conversational, almost entertainment like.
I don't know. It doesn't matter his style, but I mean, I saw his presentation at the land use committee meeting. Did anyone, did I the only one?
yes.
And it was pretty packed with information. I might want to get him to make it a little bit.
You can speak or something.
Well, wouldn't want to speed it up because it was pretty fast before. I don't think speed is the main point. I think communication is the main point.
The only
Letting people know what the purpose is and what the roles are for volunteers. And that we have the trainings coming up, what the timeline is. It's going to start in February, it'll be done by June. We're going to present it to the city, you know, why we're doing it.
I think.
What area?
I think an hour is fine, as long as like maybe you like make the presentation at 45, but you have like 15 minutes for Q&A like afterwards. Like,
Right.
that's what
I was thinking an hour including.
I'm not really comfortable with a whole hour. I guess I'd have to, you know.
I mean, it's fine. Like that.
Why?
Yeah, why? Because you just have one person.
I mean, it's a really important project, and that's something I think people are really going to be interested in. Why do you try to squeeze it?
Well, I guess
What does SMART stand for anyway?
Sorry?
What does SMART
Oh, this-
stand for?
Smart, we're not talking about smart right now.
Yeah,
Oh.
so, you were here last time, so Pat gave a presentation and Amanda gave a presentation on this historic survey project
okay.
that's going on in the neighborhood. And I don't know any more about it, probably than you do. But that's what the meeting would be about.
Right, I mean, we did a very brief summary of what we presented at the meeting, so we would be presenting a lot more than that.
What do you think?
This is something that could appeal to a lot of people in the neighborhood as well.
Yeah, and just like from like every, you know, not just like, you know, a historical perspective, but cultural.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty important. I think a lot of time dedicated to something like that, you know, an hour, I mean, that's just an hour. I think you can get a lot of people involved in the neighborhood association. I think it's a great way to reach out to people. So I think however much time like they need for it, I think it'd be a great opportunity to bring new membership. So I'm for whatever format.
You're closing out your term in a bang,
Hey,
John.
I can still come to meetings and check it out, like I said.
Oh,
you know.
yeah.
I think I'm kind of on board with John there with that. You know, history's important, and we have lost a tremendous amount of historical buildings and history out of the Monteville area. And like I said, really, I grew up in Portland, and you know, I lived where I bought my house out there where I'm at now in 1976. So I've been here a couple of days, and I've seen a lot of stuff go away. My wife grew up in the neighborhood when the street she lived on went on through. Now there's the freeway cuts it off. You know, and she talks about this, that, or the other thing, and where the hospital used to be a Eskimo Indian mental hospital. There was a lake out there.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah,
When I moved here, there was no, they had built the right-of-way for 205. And my wife's dad moved a couple houses out of there, out to Sandy, and that's where she grew up.
Yeah, it was, when I bought the house in '76, the right-of-way was there, and actually it was supposed to come down right next to my house, and they moved it out. It's neither here nor there, but yeah, there's been, my point is, and I think that dovetails with what John was saying, we've lost a lot of history, and there's pictures, if people can go back and find them, there's history of, you know, the lake that used to be out there and so on.
Well, and this is a unique project. Out of all the neighborhoods in Portland, we were selected to do this pilot project.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's probably one of the most important things that's going to be coming along.
I agree.
And probably in our terms.
And the other thing, as you know, as being on two different boards over here in Southeast, in the southern part of Monteville and into the Lynch district and stuff, we tried to get minorities involved. And it was like pulling hen's teeth to get minorities, to get even a board, you know, together. You can see how big a board you have here and how many people turned out for the meeting tonight.
Yeah, we want to improve on that.
You know, and I don't have any ideas of how to do that, but I guess I could go out to the National Guard and borrow a couple of troopers and a couple of 5-ton trucks and go around the neighborhood.
And pick them up on the way.
Picking them up, yeah.
There are ways, there are classes you can take, and I can provide you that information if you'd like.
Yeah.
The city provides for neighborhood associations.
But as far as the question of the historical survey, I don't know, do we need to actually vote to put this on, or can we just kind of say we're going to do it?
Yeah, I think we should just do it.
So then I will contact Bradley and tell him.
Okay. You let him know he has 55 minutes.
A politician here.
I think however much
But
time we need.
it's really great, because that's, you know, less exposure for me to have to stand up and, you know,
Right.
keep the meeting going, so, yeah, all right.
So for February, shall we invite Smoke?
Yeah, yeah. And then, for our business meeting next month.
Sorry, on the topic of the next meeting, or sorry, the February meeting, talked to Moose, and Moose, who's our liaison, Southeast liaison, about potentially inviting the crime and prevention organization from the city to come down.
Mark Wells.
To be determined.
Okay.
That would be a good idea.
Because that's also
Mark Wells is awesome.
something that frequently seems to come up. So we actually started the process of reaching out to them. There's no confirmation that it's going to work, but it's a potential item for February.
Well, you know what the date is, it's the second Monday, and,
Yep.
have them, tell them they can start at 6:40.
We'll usually need 6 weeks.
Okay.
Heads up, so.
Do they need an hour, or?
Our goals?
Okay.
Yeah, if we did that, I think we would want to start with SMART and then go
Oh.
into crime prevention.
Okay.
Makes sense.
But also, expose SMART to more folks. This might get a better turnout for that meeting.
We should, when we send out the agenda, maybe explain a little bit about what SMART is.
Right. It's an acronym.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could just say what that is.
Make a reader something.
So Brad, you're in contact with someone that's with SMART, right?
I think I just answered an email about it, so I can get back with them. Okay.
Yeah, maybe we could just kind of nail down how much.
So they'll be first in February. And so what I was gonna say, I guess it wasn't about February, but for next month, for January's business meeting, we have been contacted by somebody from the Franklin High School PTA or the PSTA, requesting a contribution because we have in the past. So that'll be something for us to talk about.
Oh, yeah. That's good cause.
So, and, you know, when we actually have check signers, then we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, that's something that the board's done every year, so.
So we have next general meeting covered. Board business to be determined. So the only thing I had to say on update on cleanup day is that it turns out we are going to get reimbursed not just for the dump fees, but for all our other incidental expenses. So,
How much was that?
so it's like, hey, it's great.
By whom? Who's doing the
That's Southeast Upland.
That's awesome. And so you'll have a report for next, when will that?
Well, I'm hoping to get a check real soon.
Okay.
You know, in bits and pieces, the information was all turned in. And, we've yet to get a bill. Well, we got a bill, but we haven't got terms from recycling companies. So, any other?
Yeah, regarding church storage, so right now we're using a church closet to store our gear, basically.
Yeah.
They want us out, right?
Yeah.
So we talked briefly with Leah of Southeast Uplift about finding some space there. That may be a possibility.
Actually, I've heard back that it could only be temporary.
From her? From
That was me, I sent that email.
Yeah, I remember.
I said that at the time it could be temporary just because our own building is going through changes. We're getting the old tenants in our building leaving and new ones coming in. We're not sure which spaces and closets and offices that we're renting.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we have empty spaces, we can store stuff. In the future, that stuff may have to be moved in a different location. Maybe we can keep it in the building, but in a different room. Maybe we won't be able to, we won't know for a few months. But if you need at least a temporary few months, we can store stuff.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
And then the other thing,
Yeah, go ahead.
we could consider donating some of that to Southeast Uplift as well. And then
Yeah.
I'm sure we could always borrow
Well,
it if we need
have
it.
two types of things. One is styrofoam cups and paper plates, you know, that we never would ever use in our lifetimes.
Yeah, that could be.
But then we have hard assets that we use for different events. Tables, chairs, umbrellas, and, you know, those are actually hardcore assets that we actually have on our books. And they take up a space, and I can take you down and show you, this wide by this tall. And that's it. So they're tucked really neatly back there, but they want the space for the things, you know, it may.
So these are tables and chairs on carts?
No, they're just stuffed in there, no, they're just there.
Okay.
So what would be the time frame?
Oh, whenever you guys, definitely the next like 4 or 5 months, they could definitely be stored at Southeast Uplift. And if that's all it is, you're making it sound like it's very little stuff, which is amazing, because then that could probably just be a permanent thing that we can keep.
Okay, cool.
So we're gonna adjourn here. Would you like to go look at it with me?
Sure.
Okay.
Would it be possible to build a cart with some wheels on it for those items so that they can easily be moved in and out and about? I mean, rather than having to pack 3 or 4 chairs at a time from wherever they're stored out to a vehicle where you're gonna take them where they're gonna go to on a cart. I weld.
I think you just volunteered.
You just volunteered. Yeah, but let's.
Well, that was kind of part of my point, because
Yeah.
I have the ability to build a cart. When I was in my past history, we've had hundreds of chairs and stuff in carts and so on that we had to move in and out and around to.
If you do decide to do that, make sure that it's something lightweight that you can disassemble and put into a vehicle.
Oh, no, that's going to be. No, I understand.
Yeah.
Come with this and I'll show you the stuff when we get
Because,
done.
no, ours would hold like 50 or 60 chairs. And, you could wheel it around.
Yeah.
You weren't going to pick the whole thing up.
It's not a ton of stuff. Like, you'll see. I'll show you.
Cool,
So that sounds
like. Go
like.
look at it.
So I move to adjourn.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so,
That's good.
Brad, this is just some feedback, again, this is institutional knowledge. Those cups actually would get used if you guys use them for what they were purchased for, which is traditionally the M&A board has purchased juices and refreshments.
Well, and I think there's gonna be space here for them.
Right, so what I'm saying is I wouldn't donate them. The other thing I was gonna mention is the chairs and the canopy are supposed to be at Southeast Uplift. There's a space already, there's storage where the M&A has allocated space.